lived in South Carolina. I graduated from the University of South Carolina. I worked there for a couple of years before I moved to Massachusetts. And I can identify with everything that this guy is saying in this video. The restaurant that he is talking about, I didn't go to that restaurant, but it applies to some of the other restaurants in South Carolina. So apparently you guys got to hear this story. I do want this story to get more attention. Black pastor says that Salt and Honey Grill told him Black people are not welcome. This was in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Listen to this.
He told my wife and I that Black people are not welcome in his establishment and that I can leave, and I'm barred from his restaurant. I'm down here in Myrtle Beach at Salt and Honey. I was so excited to get here because it's a TikTok sensation. I heard that the food was extremely good. And so my wife and I, we visit here, right here, Salt and Honey. And we ordered our food. My wife ordered a steak and eggs, and I ordered some eggs Benedict. And my wife sent back the steak because it wasn't cooked to her liking. So when the waitress took it back to the kitchen, the chef said, that's the way it's supposed to be. And they brought the same plate back to our table and said, you just have to eat it. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Pause. Former waitress here. And I worked at a steakhouse. I worked at Outback Steakhouse. Whenever I had a table send back a steak or any portion of their food, what was supposed to happen is you're supposed to cook it to their liking. It doesn't matter if they wanted medium well, but they said medium. That's not important. You cook it to their liking, to what they want. Remember, they are paying for it. So just keep that in mind. A manager will come out with a new plate, a new steak, and new sides. The manager would not bring out the same plate and say, well, they said you got to eat it like that. So for those of us that worked in the restaurant industry, for those of us that waited tables, nah, bruh. No.
Who heard of anything doing like that's so unhealth department? That's health department regulations that I need to call health department on. You don't do that. If it's not cooked to my specification, then you need to prepare it the way that we asked for it. But that wasn't the topic, guys. The owner of the restaurant came to the table and said he Googled how a medium well steak is supposed to look. And that's the way it's supposed to look. And so after we were not satisfied, the owner of Salt and Honey down here in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, he told my wife and I that Black people are not welcome in his establishment.
Everybody heard that part, right? Let's go back a little bit.
The owner of Salt and Honey down here in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, he told my wife and I that Black people are not welcome in his establishment and that I can leave, and I'm barred from his restaurant. We cannot continue to support establishments in Myrtle Beach or anywhere else that does not welcome Black people and their money.
Yeah, so you guys need to know about this. Salt and Honey Grill, don't go support them. That's simple. Now, some of you hearing this, you may be surprised at what he said, but I'm not. Again, I lived in South Carolina. You have to remember, for my friends that live in the Northeast with me, a lot of the racism that we deal with in the Northeast is covert. A lot of the racism down South is overt racism. So yeah, people will tell you that. And I'm going to show you a couple other examples to prove my point. I believe everything this man just said. Blatantly racist. Just blatantly open racist about it.
The only thing he had to do was remake the steak. But this gentleman told me that my wife and I was not welcome in his restaurant, that Black people play with his money too much. Just wanted to let you guys know that. I hope this goes viral. I don't know his name because he wouldn't give me his name, but he is the owner.
He's the owner of Salt and Honey Grill. So again, a waiter didn't tell him that. The owner told him they don't want you there. Sir Black here says on brand for Myrtle Beach, visited there once and never went back. The anti-blackness is thick there. I have no idea why Black people patronize any restaurant there. Yeah, there's some, I'll tell you guys, like, if you've never been there, there's some stories about Myrtle Beach. There's some stories, but it's not just that restaurant, ladies and gentlemen. Not just that restaurant. When I lived in Columbia, South Carolina, there's a chain there called Maurice's Barbecue. Maurice's Barbecue, also known for being heavily racist. And I'll show you this as well. Here's another one. Sauce is boycotted and slavery is the issue. This was Maurice's Barbecue. This was September 29th, 2000. It goes on to say here, but it was the racial notions of its maker, not its heretical formula, that led to the banishment of Maurice's all-natural gourmet blend barbecue sauce from the grocery shelves of 6 major retailers in the Southeast in the last 2 weeks. Let's get into Maurice. And if any of you are watching, you know who Maurice is. FM goes, yep, Maurice. Yep, I remember when that came out. Yeah, this is why a lot of us, like when we live down there, like Black people, a lot of us don't go to Maurice's like that, right? So Maurice Bessinger even looks like the South of the 1950s, a time when he was a forceful advocate for segregation, and at quiet moments he seems almost wistful for a time when he could state plainly his feelings about race without suffering financially for it. He went on to say, people say my restaurant never served Blacks, but that's just not true. We served them on a segregated basis like every other restaurant did. What the Blacks didn't realize was that they got the best food because their dining room was actually in the kitchen. Wait for it, guys. Wait till you hear this part. Maurice spent much of the 1950s and 60s attacking race mixing, running the National Association for the Preservation of White People, and refusing to let Blacks into his main dining room, long after most other restaurants had given in. So do you see this? The Supreme Court eventually forced him to comply with the law. That's the part that Maurice leaves out. That yes, obviously there were Jim Crow laws, there was segregation in the South, but what he omits from that part of his interview is that after the other restaurants had already removed those segregated areas, he continued to do it. And that the Supreme Court had to get him to change what he was doing. Now check this out. A few years later, he became a born-again Christian and said he put aside his notions of racial superiority. He set up a religious mission next to his main restaurant in West Columbia and began distributing tracts that combined his love of the Confederacy with his religious belief. And it is those tracts that have now landed him in trouble. The one attracting the most attention is entitled Biblical View of Slavery by John Weaver, a Baptist minister from Fitzgerald, Georgia, and argues that slavery is not inherently evil because it is permitted in the Bible. I can't make this up. South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina. It was overt. It's overt. It's in your face. Like, they don't try to hide it. They let you know they don't like you. They don't want to deal with you. They let you know. That was Maurice's Barbecue. Now I want to show you another one with Maurice's. This is another one a lot of people may not know about. Former employees sue Maurice's Piggy Park Barbecue restaurant. A new lawsuit was filed. This was 2023. This has been going on. Nothing has changed. I'm trying to tell you. A new lawsuit was filed this week against Columbia restaurant Maurice's Piggy Park Barbecue and former general manager Jeff Harrison on allegations of racism, violence, and intimidation. In the lawsuit, former employee Cassandra Robinson says that Harrison acted in an inappropriate manner, pressuring her into a sexual relationship in exchange for a pay raise, and became violent, descending into racist rants when she refused. Robinson is represented by civil rights attorney Bakari Sellers, of all people. Bakari know about Maurice's too, of the Strum Law Firm, and Amy Gaffney of the Gaffney Lewis LLC. Additional lawsuits against Harrison and the company was filed last month by Damian Wooden, a friend of Robinson who allegedly physically threatened by Harrison and called derogatory names when he stood up for Robinson. So again, I believe everything that pastor said about that restaurant at Myrtle Beach. And here's another one. Again, white South Carolina restaurant manager who enslaved and tortured Black worker gets sentenced. This is real. This is real life. This is not, comedy or anything. This is real. These things really happened. 2019, a South Carolina restaurant owner was sentenced to 10 years in prison for enslaving, physically beating, and threatening a Black employee with intellectual disabilities. Bobby Paul Edwards, who is white, for 5 years, used violence and other coercive means to make the victim, John Christopher Smith, work at Edwards' restaurant for more than 100 hours a week without pay. He pled guilty in 2018 to one count of forced labor. He was sentenced Wednesday to 10 years in prison and was ordered to pay Smith more than $272,000. Guess where this restaurant was? It was the J&J Cafeteria in Conway, 15 miles northwest of Myrtle Beach. So some of us, we have seen some of these crazy things happen in person. That's why I said I believe everything that guy said about that Salt and Honey restaurant. But enough is enough. What I can tell people is this. Hey, don't eat at that establishment. Don't eat at that establishment. There's so many other places that you can go to. Thank you, FM, says Donald Aslanaj is the owner of Salt and Honey Grill. Don't eat there. Don't eat there. Pass it on to your friends. TikTok can be a very powerful thing. Very powerful thing. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.